Welcome to another edition of A Strange New Pod, the show that has no problem hitching a ride on a Klingon bird of prey to the Romulan homeworld. I am your captain and host, Julian, alongside the man who will be joining me in co-hosting duties tonight, Eric Bannis, stunt ADR guy, Lieutenant Hawk. Also, the Borg Queen of Puns, Ensign Brittany, and the true epitome of mug life, Ensign Aaron. Admiral Eric is dealing with a Landru situation on Credania 2, and we hope to see him back next week. Yeah, Landru's always doing some shit. So here we are, though.
Wait.
Draw the line with that guy.
So we have 4 people tonight.
4.
Yeah.
There are 4 people.
Four
Guys,
hosts.
computer, 1 to beam down.
What?
What the fuck?
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Lizard babies.
Oh my
Lizard
god.
babies. Lizard babies. Lizard babies.
We
What
need
a
you to say
surprise.
lizard babies.
Well, you never know who's going to show up on a Strange New Pod, apparently.
It's true.
Apparently.
This is
I
awesome.
literally just like stabbed myself in the face.
Here, let me scoot
Is
over a
that
little bit so you
exciting?
can. There we go. There we go.
Wow. What a time to be alive.
What a time to be
Yeah.
alive, indeed.
You know what's funny about this? The only person who knew about this, just because I was like, oh, maybe they'll need to know, is Eric.
It's just like, oh yeah.
So we've been eating Indian food and watching Star Trek.
Yeah, and we also maybe
That's the way to do
rode a roller coaster. We're both vaccinated fully.
Yeah, fully immunized.
What
Good
roller
guess.
coaster did you guys ride?
Okay, so you tell the story.
So we are blood sisters now because she made me do something insane.
I can't wait.
We did what was
Talk this way.
oh this way.
You don't
Hello.
have to lean that far.
Yeah, please don't.
We did what was that?
Superman.
Escape from Krypton. It goes
Oh,
100
nice. Ooh.
miles per hour, and they strapped me on the thing, and she was like, "You ready?" And I was like, "No, I want to get out." She's making me do this.
I've never
And
done it before either.
It goes reverse 100 miles per hour and shoots you into the sky.
Like
Oh,
straight
wow.
up, and you're staring straight down. I was saying she's one of the few people I've gone 100 miles per hour with, so it's a
Exactly.
small.
Well, I would
So
So
fucking
it's warp
die.
10. It's warp
Yeah.
10. We're like,
Good
Oh, I
on
love
you
roller
guys.
coasters.
When you see this fucking thing from the ground, it's like, oh my god.
yeah, we did it.
I'm getting nervous just talking about it. But
This
guys,
is
so
awesome.
5.
This is so amazing.
5. Welcome to the show, Spotted Giraffe. This is your second full episode appearance.
Oh my
I
god, we
think
lied.
now.
There aren't just
Actually, third for her.
Third. I don't
So the
remember.
Cardassian was right. There are 5 lights.
There
There
are
are
5.
5
Oh.
lights.
Lights. 5 lights. Well, let's get right to it. I guess Giraffe, you're talking Romulans with us. This is awesome. Let's do it. So Giraffe usually watches live with us on the Twitch, but she's with us live on the air tonight. But if you are on Twitch, we say Jolan true. Keep the questions coming. No, don't do that. I'm gonna edit that out. Keep the
Are you okay?
questions. No, I'm thrown off by the fact that we have Spotted Giraffe lizard babies on the show. I'm loving it. Excuse me. Keep the questions and comments coming all night long. And then, as always, thanks to Sam Dillard and Samo Studios for taking us to the final frontier week in and week out. We love our intro and outro music. So, Hawk, Romulans, man. Romulans, baby.
Right?
Right. You like jumped at the chance. Like, I'm co-hosting this one. I'm doing it. Let's go. What made them such like a formidable villain in Star Trek? Even though we'll get to this later, they were kind of like the stepchild, redhead stepchild. I know that's kind of like not a great term to use these days,
Hey.
but there she is. Of the Star Trek universe. But they have like this great, rich and deep like backlog of episodes. Like, why are the Romulans so great?
I think because for one thing, in that they were like an onion, in that they were revealed to us in layers, and that and it's like they only made like really like a handful of appearances in the original series, and that, and
Yeah.
yet they were the most formidable in that. We only got little kind of bits and bytes of information about the war that they fought, the Battle of Sharon.
Oh, it was the Battle of Shrek.
It
Get
was
out in
about-
the swamp. Neutral
The Battle
zone.
of Shrek.
Donkey, we're making waffles.
And as I said, it's like nobody had ever seen one before, in that their peace treaty came through radio transmissions only, in that, and then we learned the truth in that, as we'll get into it a bit later, in that they're just such a fascinating race, in that I see them more as like you see as the Klingons as more of a warrior, even though the Romulans call themselves warriors, they're more like they operate more as a hunter culture.
Well, Romulans call themselves warriors, and they call the Klingons reckless. So,
Right.
There you go.
Yeah.
Been
They're
really
fa-
excited. Yeah, they're fascinating. They are.
They're fascinating.
Well, it's because, and guys, you let me know if you agree or not. Like, it's the Federation is kind of the United States, not but kind of, and Romulan and Romulus has always been considered like, you know, Russia, quote unquote, like the secret police, like the Tal Shiar being the Gestapo, basically, and or the KGB, whatever you want to call them. It's always had that kind of like parallel. We're gonna get all into it. But before we get into our deep dive into Romulans, Aaron, how can people support our show?
Oh my God, in so many different ways. You could join us on Discord, which is free, which is where we hang out. It's like the message boards of old, but way better. We do watch alongs like we did today. There was a watch along of like, what was it, 10 episodes? Like,
It was a lot. We did our first ever like true marathon that wasn't Star Trek sponsored.
it was super fun. And so now you know, Giraffe was here. We've been sitting on the couch all day watching Star Trek. That's what we've been doing. And it's been exciting. So you can join us on the Discord, or you can join our Patreon, which is $1, $2, $5, or $10. And you get lovely things like Drunk Space 9, where you drink with all of us. Well, me, Giraffe's always there, and Julian. You get cool pins like the one Julian's showing you right now. And just
Remember
lots
when
of
they
fun-
went warp and reverse in Balance of Terror?
Oh my God.
What a
Stay safe.
reference.
But yeah, there's lots of cool things you get, and you know, you get to join us. We have a member join us for a pod. You guys help suggest episodes. You know, you contribute to the show. There's a lot that comes with being a member on Patreon, and we have a couple of freebie Patreon episodes out there if you want to check it out. So join us there. It's a lot of fun.
Awesome. And you are absolutely right. It is a lot of fun. We hope you join. We are at 21 again. Remember, if we get to 25, that's only 4 more. Tell your friends. The entire podcast crew at the beginning of an episode will sing a rousing, beautiful rendition of Faith of the Heart. So if we get to 25, that's the goal. We're almost there. We're almost there. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dog, have them
Tell
sign
your
up.
cat.
Yeah, tell Echo, Brittany.
She knows.
She knows.
She's
She
watching
knows.
us live right now from my TV.
That's awesome. Speaking of Britt, can you tell us who we have to thank this week for supporting
Oh boy,
our
do
show?
So we'd like to thank Simon Stager, Jeff Reeve, Mariah Gossett, Mag, Anne Bradley, Spotted Giraffe, who's right here, Rob, Jen Stein, Tina Alexander, Joe Saporito, Noe Santos, Kang Hui, JD, Takako Nagumo, Kara Kennedy, Patrick Hazard, Mark, Dana Pearson, Fernanda Nogales, and our newest collective member, Stefan Kilyanek. Or
Woo!
is it Stefan? Stefan Kilyanek?
Let
You
us
tell
know.
me. I
Yeah,
need to know where
please.
you're from. Or how you like your name pronounced. You could
Yeah.
be my next door neighbor for all I know.
Also, we will be getting your new member Patreon pin and stickers out to you soon, because anybody, again, if you feel the need to sign up or want to sign up and help us out, anybody who signs up, as long as supplies last, get our really cool 2020 badgie.
Amazing.
Wait, let me get it out of the light.
Badgie.
We're out of the light. Out of the light. It's not working. Badgie pin. It's
I love
awesome.
the badgie pin. It's so funny.
Wear
So-
it like a badgie of honor.
Yep, that is SMK, Rob. You got it right.
And he's always monitoring the comms.
SMK.
Yep. So, Brittany, that's funny because you did the same thing with Fernanda with
I know. Well, because I see their real names, and then it's like, but tell me your Discord and Twitter name, and then I'll be like, oh, it's you.
did you just
Like
go
a
full
chaotic
Chaotica?
vote.
Yeah.
Well, I went like 20% Chaotica.
I mean, listen,
Oh my
like
God,
Giraffe
got
appeared, and all of a sudden, the
Chaotica and
Chaotica started.
Arachnia.
Hey, I want to say that she's been calling me giraffe outside to people,
Yo,
which,
I'm like, this is Giraffe.
and I'm like, I have a real name, but like,
I love
she
we
calls
all
me
know your
giraffe.
should
real
just go
name, but
for
we
it.
continue to call you Giraffe.
even though we know your real name, your name's Giraffe, and that is what
Yeah.
we
That's
will
right.
call
I'm
you
gonna-
for
I'm
now
making
on.
it a thing. In LA, you're Giraffe.
All right,
Amazing.
guys, let's get to one of my favorite parts of the show. That is the strange new loop. Giraffe got to experience that live. Yeah. So the question is, and of course, again, Twitter, not Twitter, sorry, Twitch, let us know in the comments what you would do as well. If you could serve in the Romulan Star Empire, would you be A, a commander on a warbird, 2, or B, a member of the Tal Shiar or Zhat Vash, C, a member of the Quat Malat, or finally D, a sleeper agent within the Federation?
Obviously,
mean-
I'd join the Kwisatz Haderach. No, I would totally be a sleeper agent within the Federation. I feel like I'd be that person they don't suspect, and then I'm like, don't be suspicious, don't be suspicious, don't be suspicious. And really, I'm like Romulan. And I wouldn't wear sunglasses.
Okay, Commodore O.
Yep. Commodore, oh no.
Commodore or no fashion choices.
I just wish they would have explained why, like that. I wanted it to have a reason.
I'm having
Like,
your voice
to be
problems from
hypnotized?
Sunday. Apparently it was to give off an aura. Like she did an interview, or I think the director of the episode did a kind of interview and gave this BS reason that like her wearing the sunglasses as like this authoritarian figure was to like give off a vibe
So
of
she wore shades to be shady.
yes,
Ooh,
exactly.
I liked it. I liked it.
So
A spectacle to behold.
Takako, you're right. Me and Brittany are big Dune fans. I think she was just making a joke about the Kwisatz Haderach.
I like that she picked up on
But
that.
yeah,
so.
good call on calling us out on that. Hawk, you looked ready to go to answer the question.
Yeah, I was trying to think about this. I don't think I could be Jacques Vache or a sleeper agent in that because I'm a terrible liar, or Tal Shiar. And I really love technology in that, and I think eventually it will replace us in that, and I welcome it.
Bring us our AI overlords.
Exactly. So I think I'm going to go with the other option in that and be a commander on a
Ooh, yeah.
Warbird.
Nice.
All right, bonus points. Who can name the class of that warbird?
It's a
Who wants
D
to-
something. D.
You're right. You're right.
D. Oh damn! It's a complicated
Oh,
word.
I got it right here. You want to go for it?
Buzz in.
All right. Ding ding. Dideridex.
Correct.
Oh, that is.
I
that
had
is
the
a
first
hard one.
letter. So
You did. You had the first
Yes,
letter.
you did.
And
It's
Rob
a
had it
really
right
big-
too. So commander on a Dideridex class warbird. Yes.
Yes, most definitely.
All right. We'll let our.
You gotta be daring.
I was gonna say, hold on, let's let our guest go next, but it just came out. Let's let our giraffe go next.
Yeah, let's let our giraffe go.
Let the giraffe go.
definitely commander of a warbird because I love the Enterprise incident. I just love that episode so much, and I want to rock like that awesome like
Yeah. Big old sash.
thing, and yeah, this.
That was, we were watching it and she was just like, the outfits, man, the outfits.
They did go so hard in the beginning.
The
Shout out to
boots
Rob.
game.
Yeah, dude. More of the sash game. More of the
Sash game was
sash
good.
game.
It
Rob,
was more interesting.
yeah.
It's
Rob
more
was
fun
saying
when they sashay away.
Rob was saying that I caught that one
I
not
caught
in
that
post
reference.
this time. Rob was saying that the TOS Romulan uniforms have been the best in TOS and just continually maybe got worse. I thought they were okay in Nemesis, but the shoulder pads in TNG were just oof.
They look
That-
like couches.
That was a
Yeah.
look.
All right, I'm going to choose to say none of these because I'd be terrible at all of these jobs. And as we were watching the episode where Deanna goes undercover, like against her will, and they're having dinner, we're like, they're eating Indian food. Like, it's definitely what that looks like. I will be the cook on the Romulan ship. And that's how I'll be the
Amazing.
best fucking spy because like that shitty episode of Enterprise, everybody comes and talks to the cook, man.
Cooks know a lot.
They do indeed. So on Twitch, NY Rylite says, no way I could be a Zhat Vash. I'd have torn my face off seeing the images of the destroyer. That's fair. I think that's actually the only person on Twitch who commented with an answer. So I will go. Yeah, I think I'm a terrible liar. I think I am. I don't know. Maybe I am. I really love the Tal Shiar because I could just kind of be like the worst aspects of myself and just like for you two who want to be the commanders, I'd be that asshole major who would come aboard the warbird and take over and just like be given the orders and be like, I'm in command now, bitch. Take us to Earth. We're gonna blow it up. I would love to be in the Tal Shiar. I'd probably slip up and get put in some hole on Romulus, never to be seen again, though. So it probably wouldn't last long, but I'd give the Tal Shiar too. Talik, sorry, I missed your answer. I'm scrolling up. I see it. Ass kicking none. Yes, the Quat Malat. Indeed, Talix. Yes. Sorry, Talix. It got lost in the warp, the time warp.
I
got
can
lost
attest
in the
that
lost
Julian
causes.
is not good at lying because I've played Coup.
Oh,
Secret
dude,
Hitler,
you're really gonna
and
bring this up right now?
One Night Ultimate Werewolf with you. No, I'm backing you up here.
Yeah, Julian.
I do really well with those games, but I am sweating and like having panic attacks the entire time. But on the outside, I'm just like, it ain't me. It ain't me.
And then it is.
Yeah, but you
I have an
guys, that
ambassador.
one night, I think that was like literally the last. That was my birthday. No,
Yeah.
my birthday, and y'all
Really,
kept on
Christmas and your
calling me
birthday.
out because I sucked so much.
I think you were just a little drunk. So like you had some big tells, and I was like, buddy.
But calm it
You
down.
just couldn't tell you had these big tells that were happening.
AL60223 says you can both command a warbird and pull crazy shenanigans. Yeah, that's what I want to do. I just want to cause shenanigans and like tell some Centurion to replicate me a pitcher of Romulan ale so I can go get blasted in the conference room. Because that's what Tal Shiar do, right? They boss
Oh, yeah.
people around and just drink Romulan ale.
I just
So.
want to be
Hell yeah.
sneaky.
Sneaky is good. Let's get into the episode, and we are going to give a brief history of the Romulans. Now, we didn't split these up originally, but why don't we do it since we have a guest? Is the outline available to you, Giraffe?
Yes, here.
All right,
Ah,
awesome.
On Erin's lap.
Do you want to
That's right.
read our first little bit of history about the Romulans, starting with the comment from Paul Schneider?
Thank you for pronouncing the name for me.
You're welcome.
So Paul Schneider is credited with creating the Romulans and make their first appearance in an episode we'll talk about shortly, Balance of Terror. Schneider remarked, "It was a matter of developing a good Romanesque set of admirable antagonists that were worthy of Kirk. I came up with the concept of the Romulans, which was an extension of the Roman civilization to the point of space travel, and it turned out quite well."
Indeed, I think it did. I think it did indeed. Aaron, how about the next one?
Paul Schneider modeled the Romulans on the ancient Romans, naming the ancients' homeworlds after the mythical founders of Rome, Romulus and Remus.
And Remus.
What
It
about
was
the
a-
Remans? Where's Lexi?
Ooh.
It was a matter of developing a good Romanesque set of admirable antagonists that were worthy of Kirk. Man, they're really just putting in the difficult to pronounce stuff in here. Admiral antagonists.
It's the tongue ties and the tongue twisters. It's pretty obvious how much the Romulans, just from their name, right? Just completely based on Rome, from the Senate to a lot of the names of the characters to, I think like some cities on Romulus are named after, places that Rome conquered. Everything about them is Rome.
Their class
Yeah.
systems like
Yeah.
praetors,
Star
senators,
Empire.
centurions.
Well, even the
Yeah,
untrustworthiness of the Romulans, right? Because there were always people like trying to get like political gain, in Rome. It was,
They're based on like the bad sides of humanity.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Like the
exactly.
Vulcans got too emotional and they shut that shit down. Here's the
Mhm.
other side when they didn't follow those things. They pieced out. They're like, no.
Mm-hmm.
And then the
Correct.
rallies happened.
Yep. Hawk, the next one, please.
Alrighty. In the first edition of the Star Trek The Next Generation Writer's Director's Guide, Gene Roddenberry declared that no stories concerning warfare with Romulans would be accepted for the new series. After DC Fontana convinced him to change his mind, Roddenberry allowed the Romulans to occasionally feature on the new series from then on, but preferred not to use them as the series' primary villains.
Yeah, and I think that was going back and watching these episodes today, and the Romulans have always been my favorite villain, but going back and watching these especially, they were so good and so deep, and especially, I mean, I think the second to last episode I watched today was that DS9 episode with Bashir, and I was just like,
Ooh, love that one.
it's so good.
Yeah.
But they just weren't fleshed out enough as much as they could have been, which is sad in my opinion.
It's the whole thing. It's like if a good villain, you just want to reveal it in layers, and that like they did in there was season 1 finale of TNG.
Well, right, when they were like tracking basically they kept on track of the Warbird, and the Warbird like hinting that they found the first, hints that the Borg were in the quadrant. And they were
Sure.
also like, by the way, the Borg might be here, and also we're back, bitches. The guy who had Mark Alamo, who would go on to play Gul Dukat, played a Romulan in that episode, and was basically like, we just wanted to let you know that we're back. He literally says the words "we're back," like "Backstreet's back." All right.
If the Borg take over a
Romulans back,
Romulan
all
ship, is it then a Warborg?
A Warborg.
Shut up!
I just told you to shut up, but you should just take the next the last bit of Romulan history, please.
Oh, they crawl back. So apparently the Romulans have always been the quote ugly duckling of Trek villains, as we've kind of already said. They were originally going to be the main antagonist for Insurrection, but Patrick Stewart penned a letter lambasting the choice, and he called them quote unexciting and quote backward looking. There are many within that circle who work on the films and series that say it was a massive mistake not to use Romulans in the film.
I agree.
Yeah,
Mhm.
the Sona, not the Sona, or the Baku, right? The Baku were the bad ones. It's just so dumb. It was such a dumb concept. And yes, Rob said it should have been Sela, but I think that would have worked better. Oh yeah, there he goes, in the wrong film, in Nemesis, which is a big reason why they showed up in Nemesis. They're like, well, you didn't let us do Romulans in Insurrection. Let us do Romulans in Nemesis, and they are one of the bright spots of that film.
They should have called it Romulan Insurrection. Because you're either Romulan or you're Romulau.
Get off my bridge.
Let it stop. Let it stop, please.
I took my shot, Vosh, and it didn't work. Didn't happen.
It's magical. It's so magical.
I don't know if magical is the right word.
It's
Hawk,
not.
did I miss anything about Romulan history or anything that I may have missed?
I think we've got it all. They were always put on that. I remember I mentioned the last time they were put on the back burner as the main villain in TOS, and that because the makeup effects were just too expensive. After Balance of Terror, it's like the budget got slashed, and it's like, okay,
Yep.
here's some shoe polish and that. Go make another villain.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, shoe polish works.
Yep. Indeed, it does. All right, well, let's get right into it. So, much like our other deep dives into species that we've been doing, we picked a handful of episodes, a lot of you marathon today on our Discord, which was a lot of fun. And we are going to start with what I would consider, and I'm guessing many others would maybe be the second best episode of the original series in The Balance of Terror, which is a season 1 episode. It is the first appearance of Romulans in Star Trek, and overall just an awesome episode, right? Filmed very uniquely, filmed in a very like Navy type of way. It's the one and only time you ever see the Enterprise's like phaser control room. Really great episode.
And poor Tomlinson just didn't make it to his wedding.
Spoilers.
I was about to say, that's the one with the wedding, right?
It's the
Yes.
one with the wedding. What do we think about their introduction and the fact that this is the first time that you learn that they have ancestry to the Vulcans?
Who goes first?
I like
Anybody?
it. I'm just gonna say it right now. I think that's what makes Romulans so interesting is the fact that they're connected to this like group that you already know because you love Spock in the original series, and then you see so much of the Vulcans throughout all the series. And then whenever the Romulans like sprinkle in, they show up. You're just like you learn more and more about like the two cultures kind of diverging, and like they kind of like shadow each other in different ways, or so it makes it so interesting when you're actually able to like see an episode about them. And this was a cool way to actually introduce them because this is like I didn't see this episode before today. I watched it this morning.
Oh, wow.
And so I'd never seen the episode where they're first introduced. I just know them from all like the different iterations that we've had. So especially as far in the future as they've gotten in Discovery, where you're like, okay, now they're going to be on a planet with the Vulcans. You know, how's that going to play out? And now I'm like, oh, cool. This was actually a really interesting introduction. I enjoyed the episode. So I think that's the ancestry is what makes it so like unique in a way.
And the fact that like they're almost like a mirror universe Vulcans within the same universe, right?
Yeah.
Because as we learn like in later episodes, there's really no difference physiologically between them and Vulcans and that.
It's like minor differences, yeah.
Yeah, so they have the
Like,
same
my
mass.
eyebrow is slightly darker. I have better eyesight.
I am black on one half and he is black on the
The
other
Vulcans
half.
are like, yes, I see your point.
So I mean, like well, the Vulcans use their massive intellect in that, to push logic and philosophy, and that they use theirs towards military campaigns and expansionism of their own empire.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, both are kind of like hoity-toity, like almost to the point where they think they're better than other races.
Oh yeah, they
But,
like
like,
to
it's
smell
the
their
way
own,
that-
yeah, they like to
yeah.
smell their own shit, like
Yeah,
100%.
like even Vulcans are
Yeah.
that way to some extent, but it's so interesting how they can both have all these similarities but be so vastly different. And that's cool.
Well, we had an interesting conversation about because like there's the big thing in the beginning where Kirk is like, "Hey, I'm not having any of your bigotry over here," and I felt like that was really interesting, and I like the way that he handled that. But like you commented
Yeah,
about,
I was. I actually read the comic book from George Takei about his experience in the internment camp when he was a kid, and rewatching Balance of Terror after that. Even if I knew his story, I was like, how much like subtext you can have in this episode about having an enemy that looks away and people that are your people and look the same way. And I feel there's a lot of subtext to read in that episode. And I was thinking, like, do we have like any, did Takei ever talk about it or had any comment about it? Because like that jumped right away when I rewatched it today.
like you said, you thought
I'm
maybe
sure he
even
did.
filming it, he might have been like triggered by that.
Yeah,
Mm.
because that's mostly things that he may have heard. And
It's actually really interesting because he has a couple of lines in this episode, right? But they give a lot of lines to kind of like the xenophobic, racist, other like the ops character, the con officer,
Styles.
Who we
who
never
Kirk,
see again.
who Kirk,
Nice.
and Kirk's like, that's not welcome on the bridge or on this ship. Like, knock that shit off right now. And that's actually really interesting because you don't hear Sulu talk that much of that. So I'm wondering if he was kind of, if Takai was triggered by it. That's a really interesting point.
But they've done that with a few episodes and things. Like even when they talked about like Klingons, like,
Yeah.
there's always that like inherent like racism they touch on. You're just like, oh man.
Yeah. Yeah. On Twitch, Yum Yum Pod says, "Hey Yum Yum Pod, it's interesting to remember how cut off and isolationist the Romulans were in TOS in comparison to the other shows." Yeah, it is, right? Because they don't show up again until the end of season 1 of TNG, and then even then they show up, they're always super secretive. They're always, Romulus is shut off from the rest of the quadrant. So they've always been that way. I really like what you brought up, Hawk, and I think Brittany, you touched on a little bit as well. About the Romulans being kind of just like almost the mirror universe version of the Vulcans in the same universe, because Spock brings that up in this episode. He's like, we had our wars and we had our savage times, right? And basically the Romulans went through that as well, you're assuming. And instead of trying to find true logic and become better, they went and became this isolationist like secret society and took that with them and stayed true and kept emotion. And that's why I've always really found them interesting. It's always been that contrast between Vulcan and Romulan. I've always loved that. So
It's Romulus versus them.
yeah, it is. You're right. I hate you. Yeah.
I am the Romulan to your Vulcan.
What do you guys think of the overall tone of this episode? And then, you don't really get to see Romulus, but the Romulans moving forward, who I think only show up like once or twice in TOS.
It's so amazing. Like the plot of this episode could have been the basis for Das Boot and the Hunt for Red October.
Rob actually mentioned that earlier. It's like 20 years before Das Boot.
But just that like it's a spaceship battle, and that it's like a submarine battle, obviously, in that, but it's move and counter move and seeing them both in that, and like just the way like Kirk's mind mirrors the Romulan commanders.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned the submarine battle, because they were talking about how this was also the one and only time the phasers were used in this manner of almost being used as like submarine depth charges, which I thought was a really neat parallel. So you get a little bit of that Navy space battle thing that we see in Wrath of Khan,
It really brought some depth to the episode.
Shut up, Wesley.
It was pretty charged, if you ask me.
Oh yeah.
Shut
that's
up,
the one.
Wesley.
Giraffe
more
noticed
ammunition.
this bit of it, and we were laughing about
I
it.
just like the fact that I think it's the one, yeah, where like there's a fire on the bridge.
Like
and
in
like
that little
Spock just goes down, and Nimoy just like pats the fire, and you're like, that would not happen today. Like no actor would just like
on an open flame,
on a set.
like puts his face right
I mean,
fucking
I
next
would.
to it. They wouldn't let you. Like you're
No.
you're
I
worth
know,
too
that's
much.
true.
But we had a good. She was like shitting herself over that.
There's,
We were
there are
laughing.
too many things burning into us.
Well,
There's
like,
another
dude-
episode where there's a wall burning, and everybody, all the actors are just looking at it, like you can see them like freaking out in like the back of their mind.
At least put a glove on, right?
Someone's standing off to the side, like waiting for them to yell, like cut, and they're just like, shh.
Anything else on Balance of Terror?
It was good.
It was a good balance of terror.
Oh, we didn't
Mark
talk
Leonard.
about. We need to. Sorry, I skipped that. Thank you. We need to talk about Mark Leonard, who obviously is best known for talk. I'm out of it a little bit. Who's best known for playing Sarek, Spock's dad. He plays the Romulan commander in this episode, and just an absolute amazing performance. What made like this? Because listen, it looked like they were filming in crazy close quarters. So to be able to do that and act the way that he does, such a professional. What made that so good?
Him. I mean, he's
Yeah.
a good actor, and he made that role his own as a new, like a new type of people that we haven't met before. And he took it, he made it his own. And let me tell you, the way he went out, he was like, ah! That was my favorite part.
I love that like auto destructs and things getting blown up meant like dramatically moving and like lights flashing and then just like a fade to black instead of seeing the actual explosion because budgets didn't exist back then.
Your own
Um,
imagination is the greatest tool of all.
Indeed. Yummy on Pot says Mark Leonard and William Shatner somehow managed to form such a chemistry without ever interacting like together in the same location, which is I think absolutely accurate. Anything else on Mark Leonard?
Yeah, the writing is good. He has
Yes.
an excellent character. Like that guy is having a struggle. Like he loses his friend. He wants to do his duty, but that's not what he really wants. Like it's really good writing too. I mean,
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like all he really wants to do is go home, but he has to do his duty and fight the Enterprise. And
Duty.
My favorite line was after Kirk like performed some sort of counter move and the ship is in a bad state and the Centurion runs up to him. What happened? And that he's a sorcerer, this one.
yes. Also, the one and only episode of Star Trek we'll ever see the Enterprise get nuked
Yeah, that was drama.
because
Yeah, he
nukes.
really hit the mark, I think.
Yeah.
Ah.
Brittany is on a roll tonight. Let's move on to another classic episode of TOS. This is in TOS's third and final season, the Enterprise incident. And this kind of furthers that silent Cold War-esque conflict between the Romulans and the Federation.
This
Yeah, this
episode
is
was
the one-
fun. Sorry, I'm just
I was gonna
excited.
say, this is the one where you definitely felt a lot like, okay, this group of people is definitely like subtext for the Russians, like versus the US and Cold War. Because it felt a lot more thought out for, I mean, I've seen only a handful of TOS episodes, but usually like you have the zany, weird ones, and then you have these like really profound, like political ones or like deep ones. And this is one of those for sure. So it was so cool to see like the level that the Romulans can like act at, because we saw a little bit when they're introduced, obviously, but then this time around you're like, oh wait, they're a force to be reckoned with, and like we have to be careful.
and
That
that
and the
reveal.
You go ahead.
I was saying like that. I love that episode. So many people don't like the third season and say like, "Ah, it's not good," but it's an excellent episode. And the moment when they enter and she turns the chair
Yes.
and it's a woman, to us it's like,
Yep.
oh, okay. But like in the 60s, like a woman commander, and she's like,
You're like,
oh,
Like a boss.
like Janeway
Yep.
energy, you know, kind of like
big
badass.
Janeway energy.
Yeah.
BJE.
Aaron, I know that you were super excited. You were going to say something.
I mean, I liked it a lot. A lot of it, it's nice to have her here because she's like the TOS person, but just everything she said about like the story moves quickly. The characters are smart. Like this commander, even when she's doing all this other stuff and she's like trying to get her Mac on with Spock, like is immediately back in command as soon as like this story calls for it. When she's being called by someone, she's not like, oh my goodness, like she just jumps back in and takes control. She's a badass, and it's just an interesting story. Like there's no dead points in this episode. It moves and it's just
Mhm.
fun.
Agreed.
I agree.
Yeah. Absolutely. One of the big topics, the topic of this episode, the whole reason this episode happened is the stealing of a Romulan cloaking device, which has been a subject moving into every single Star Trek series, hence because later that the Federation was trying to mimic the technology and even steal it. And the Romulans, they had signed a treaty saying you can't use it. But before there was any treaty saying that they couldn't use it, the Federation tried to have Kirk and Spock steal it. And what do we think about that? That was such a cool scene. One of the only times you'll see the Enterprise cloak.
First up, the preamble up to it, and that where basically Kirk was acting insane for like must have been like at least a week or two, and that just so he could give Spock enough information that he wouldn't have to actually lie. Whether he was actually capable of lying or that's always been debatable. In that I think Vulcans can lie, they can lie, but they just choose not to. I just love the whole preamble up to it. The captain's been acting insane for weeks. He's mentally
lying.
Death grip. Death grip.
Yes, the death grip.
When I get surprised by people, I just death grip them.
So you just grab their face immediately?
Yes. And you
It's like it happened 5 times today.
Death Spider.
Death Spider.
I love it. I love when they cloaked, and the fact that he does that moment where he's like, okay, now like roundabout or turn, because they're definitely going to go for like where our last like position was, and they're just like pew 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 flying off in space, and she's just like, shit.
And Wyrelight
She's
says,
still ready to go to the brig though.
oh yeah, for sure. And Wyrelight says Kirk Crazy Face is classic in that episode. It absolutely is, and he even does his best Sylvester Stallone before Sylvester Stallone. Yeah, I love some of that. I think it's like when he's getting his, I'll kill you. He does something like that, and he sounds exactly like Stallone. And I was like, yes.
Classic.
It's such a good episode. I always like the stuff with the cloaking devices, and I always love when Kirk is pushing Scotty too hard. He's like, dude, it's not gonna work. You can force me to try and get it to work like all you want. It's not gonna work. And if I get it to work, it's gonna take some time. And Kirk's like, no, I don't have the time. He's like, well, you're gonna wait.
We were laughing about that because like there's an early episode, like season 1 of Voyager, where B'Elanna's like, I'm gonna need about 2 hours, and Janeway's like, make it 1. And B'Elanna goes, Captain, when I say 2 hours, I mean 2 hours. It's not gonna go any faster. And Janeway was like, all right, I hear you. Like, I love that moment because it was like a callback to every other show. Like, this is bullshit.
No buffer time.
Giraffe is like coffee, black. I can see it in her eyes.
That's right.
She's like, I gotta say it.
Yep, indeed. Joanne Linville, who was just brilliant in this episode as the Romulan commander, she attempts to get in that Spock booty and get him to defect to the Empire. What did we think about her interaction and the almost pon far between those two?
Wait, you need to hear Giraffe's take on this. She loved the shit out of her. Oh my god, like you need to hear this.
So no, yeah, the whole thing with Spock is that you don't really know if he's talking out of his ass or not. You're like, what is going on? And I have a hot tech wild triple chase material. So
wild triple chase.
Like she like tries to feed him, then she tries to get him drunk.
Doesn't try to feed him, gives him Romulan ale, gives him another drink while he's eating
like
yummy
Vulcan food. We have Vulcan food. Like she like ticking all the boxes, you know.
She was trying
so,
to
like,
blow
I'm
his
a
Vulcan
woman
mind.
too, and she comes like in that awesome dress, and you're like, girl, like, you know, she comes, she's stealing
she
your
could
first
get it.
officer, she's trying to shoot your ship. Like, I respect that commander. And at the end, hot take, okay, at the end, that scene in the elevator where like Spock like kind of like innuendo that like is kind of into it, and at the end she's like, it's gonna be our secret. I mean, Q&A, anybody? Like, come on! Like, do you like aubergine? Look, eggplant? Aubergine is in French. Right?
Aubergine,
Yeah,
no.
no,
Aubergine,
I knew what
whatever.
you meant.
And like at the end, like she makes it him swear that it's their secret and to never talk about it again. I'm like,
Yep.
Hot take also to agree with you that I think Spock was 100% into it and wanted that Romulan
He was
ass.
like emotions.
Yeah.
like that figure banging there, like going on. Like, come on.
I got a hot take on her character in that she was as duplicitous as Kirk or Spock in that. And that was another layer of the Romulan motivations in that. As I said, they seem more like a hunter culture in that. Like the Klingons would have just been content to destroy the Enterprise and told, be around telling their friends the story of it and that and exaggerating it, obviously. But for Romulans in that, it's the prize. She wanted the Enterprise. She knew she couldn't take it without Spock. So
she wanted the booty.
No, don't.
And
I
the
knew
booty.
I thought you were gonna make an Enterprise pun.
Well, that too. But she wanted the booty and the booty.
Okay.
She wanted both ships, if you know what I mean.
I wanted to ask you something that I was thinking watching this episode again because I hadn't seen it in a very long time. When she whispered, "This is my name," we don't ever get her name, and Spock has a very strong reaction to that. Do you think that? Giraffe just threw me off in the chat.
Yeah.
Do we think that she was also half Vulcan? Or half
I didn't get
half
that.
human or half
she whispered in his ear, "My name is Tabang."
Yes.
And that's why he was like,
best one ever.
I want to know what the hell is going on.
Can we get?
"Girl, I'm about to spark
Can
your world."
Eric make that a shirt? That seems inappropriate.
Probably not. Oh
We're
man.
just gonna ban me.
We also got to see Kirk in Romulan garb and rock that Romulan Centurion outfit. They were so good.
Much better than the current ones. Like the color. Why did they get rid of all the cool color, man? And like it had texture. There was a lot of pink. I like that.
Because the 90s.
Yeah.
They were good. Like what
Shoulder
happened?
pads were in, man.
Oh God.
Yeah.
They just took a sofa, took the outer parts off the sofa and put it on as an outfit in the 90s.
They did.
Yeah.
Just a bunch of big triangles walking around.
Anything else on the Enterprise incident?
I have so many thoughts, but you don't want to hear them.
No,
No.
Oh, we do.
We do.
The true Enterprise was the friendship we made along the way.
I was
You can
waiting
move
for
on.
it. I was waiting for it. I'm gonna hand the con over to Hawk for the next part.
So we move on to the next generation. And we'll start with the enemy. So I'll just read the summary. At the Galandan core, Geordi must convince a wounded Romulan soldier named Bakra to set aside his mistrust in order for the two of them to survive the planet's harsh, unforgiving environment. So I love this episode in that it really tackles mistrust. I think is central to it. The Romulan mistrusting Geordi in that, wanting to take him prisoner no matter what, as creature of duty. But those cracks in their facade, are there. You saw it a little bit with Mark Leonard's performance in Balance of Terror in that. He was this guy who was a creature of duty, but he was sick of war in that. And eventually, obviously, Geordi gets through to this guy and they end up working together. Also, the way it tackled Worf and his perception of the Romulans, that bad blood that was there. And the fact that he would not donate his blood willingly. He would do it.
It was worth it.
Right?
You had to prove it.
If it's worth it, let me patak it.
Put that thing down, flip
Put
it
that
down,
batleth in and reverse it.
Oh my God. There's two of them now.
Yes. What did you guys think of this episode? I want to hear your thoughts.
I love Geordi shenanigans.
Yeah.
That exactly what you said.
But he was definitely stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Oh God. But
those harsh environments, it's like doing a podcast with me.
Wasn't it though like a masterclass in like Geordi, like LeVar Burton's acting? He was funny. He was like serious. He had emotion. I just thought it's like there were all these like really small moments where I was like, God damn, LeVar Burton, you're beautiful. Like he just has it. But that episode, there's so much going on in this episode. There's them working together on this crappy planet. We said at the beginning, if Geordi would have just taken out his damn phaser in that hole and been like, I'm right here, motherfuckers, like straight up, problem solved.
But then we wouldn't have an episode.
I know. And the thing with Worf, where everybody tries to convince him, or not even that, like I like the conversation he had with Riker, And I love the conversation with Picard because he sets him up to where he thinks he's going to be told, and then he doesn't. And I think that shows like the future, like there's an understanding, and the fact that he doesn't do it at the end, I think is unexpected, but you know, it's an interesting choice, and I thought that was good.
You know what's really funny, or not funny? It's interesting more than anything else, that in this world that Gene Roddenberry was trying to create with Next Generation about like no conflict, everybody's kind of just there for each other, and there's this mutual understanding of betterment, that this episode was allowed to have that happen with Worf, where he was allowed to make the decision to say no, and you know, make, you know, I believe the Romulan does die at the end.
He
Yeah.
does. Yeah.
Super deep and super, you know, I don't want to bring up a lot of the shit that you see on the internet, but so many people like to quote and say, well, Gene Roddenberry would hate this or Gene Roddenberry would hate that. But then Gene Roddenberry contradicted himself so much on TNG and had writers who would say, hey, there needs to be these conflicts, and would allow it to then be put on the show. I know that Gene eventually in the 90s lost a lot of the control of the show. But still a lot of un-Roddenberry-esque things happening in this episode, which I found really unique and interesting. And Yum Yum Pod brought up a great point about Tomalak not being used as much as he should have in TNG, and he was so good in this as well. That back and forth with him and Picard.
You know who didn't
Hey,
lose
Picard,
control of
what
their
you doing
genes?
here? Oh my God,
Worf.
we're in the same neighborhood.
By the way, it's the exact counterpoint from the Enterprise incident. You know, when like Kirk is like, it's a navigation problem. It's like, oh, come on with your navigational problem. And there it's like exactly reverse. Like Tomalak's like, oh, it's a navigational problem. And they're like, no, we know you're not.
right.
And that's so good that you can see the actual reaction of the Federation if somebody would do that. So
Yeah.
And how about the fact that he wouldn't even show his whole hand to Kirk, not even mentioning that there was a second man on the ship?
Oh, Picard, you mean?
Yeah, Tomalak, not revealing.
Tomalak, yes.
Yeah, not revealing to Picard that there was a second man down there.
Down below. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great character.
I think Worf just wanted to cling on to his DNA.
When do we put her on timeout?
Nobody
we're
laughed at my other
laughing.
jokes,
We're
so I had to make
laughing,
another
so-
one.
Yeah, I love
we're
it.
into it.
Sometimes you gotta have a hard patak, you know?
Speaking of which, I couldn't help but notice like a little Nero reference when during one of Patak's final moment in the sickbay, and that I would rather die than pollute my body.
That was a moment,
Like,
man.
then
It's like,
Yeah.
That was a
Well,
moment,
Worf
man.
was
This
like,
is a
no
mood.
problem.
It's
Enjoy
deep
death.
stuff because, like, you still have people that do that in hospitals today. Like,
Yeah.
you know, they'll be straight up be like, I refuse this blood because I'm fucking racist, or I don't
Yep.
want this doctor because I'm racist. So you're just like, then perish.
Yes,
Yeah, for
enjoy.
real.
Enjoy death.
Pull up a bed for someone who's not racist. Ta-da.
Yeah, for reals.
Good episode.
Loved
Excellent.
Good talk.
Any more thoughts, or should we move on to the next one?
it. Let's go.
All right, so we move on to the Defector, which is probably my favorite TNG episode dealing with the Romulans. I know everybody's got their own, but this one was mine, mostly for James Sloyan. So I'll read the summary here. The Enterprise intercedes when a Romulan scout ship is pursued by warbirds intent on destroying it. The sole occupant of the craft claims to be a logistics officer with information about an imminent attack by the Romulans against the Federation. It all comes down to James Sloyan, who plays Admiral Jarrock in it. Again, the duality of the Romulans and but still like all the characteristics, and that presenting himself as this logistics officer with a lot of high level information, never showing his whole hand to begin with.
Except everybody right from the get-go called out his bullshit about being a logistics officer. Like, dude, there's no way you're a lowly logistics officer and have this much information. Who are you?
Yeah, correct. Showed way early on the incident at the Golomdin Core. I also love that that he references the Battle of Sharon again. The Romulan Senate, the Romulan High Command never forgot that battle, and they've always been intent on launching another a war. I'm getting a little off track here. What do you guys think?
Honestly, this is the one we just did not have time to watch today, and I just don't remember it well. So we're gonna listen to you guys and enjoy.
This is the only one I wasn't able to watch.
Oh
Oh
shit!
Picking on
man,
you.
it's time to be in Julian.
Julian,
Now-
did you guys
now-
watch this
now-
episode?
I thought you guys were gonna jerk this, and now I'm looking like a jerk about this. So well done. I
Well,
literally was nodding along like, sure.
let
sure,
me
I've watched
let
this.
me take the Jirok and run with it. Oh, nothing.
No,
I
no,
get
no.
stonewalled on
You
that
can
one.
be our Jirok.
Jesus,
Jesus can't help you with this.
this
Jesus can never help you with
episode
me.
is so damn good, and it's so damn good for one scene in particular, and that's when he's already cried wolf too many times, right? He hasn't given them enough information, and he's talking to Data in 10 forward, and he finally says, I'm the admiral, and wants to speak to Picard, and he goes into the ready room, and hence and it's one of those amazing, maybe like top 10 Picard in his ready room speech moments where he says, I have this information, what I've been telling you is true, and Picard, Patrick Stewart, in an excellent line, says something along the lines of, well, Admiral, I just don't know if I believe you. And they end up having this amazing conversation where he goes on to talk about, I'm never going to see my family again. I'm doing this. I'm not a defector. I believe in my people, but what we're doing is wrong. And it's this great conversation, only then to have been led on by his people in the most fucked up way possible. It's just it's so damn
I
tragic.
remember this for like 9 months. They'd been feeding him shit, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
false-
they didn't trust him. Like, they
Oh.
questioned his loyalty, so they thought we're gonna play this out and that. And in doing so, they almost got their reason to start a war with the Federation. They were basically using him to launch a war against the Federation.
Yeah.
So he
which
was
is
trying Wolf
which is
359.
right.
That was an inside job, by the way.
Right.
So was this.
And
what-
that
Go ahead, on.
the final scene, where they go, they make the journey, they don't find the base, they find nothing. All they find is three Romulan warbirds.
Yeah, but that's Picard's ingenuity, right? Because he was always one step ahead. He's like, this guy's gonna get us into trouble. Hey, Worf, you want to go make a quick call to the High Council and get us some help? And the Romulan, it's Tomalak again, right? And he's like,
Yep.
I think we're just gonna blow you up. And John Luke's like, I don't think so, because we have a little bit of help. And you see like 3 bird of praise
'Cause he said-
decloak.
And beam down his friends, like I did with Giraffe.
He didn't beam down any friends. He just made friends appear.
We didn't
I know.
watch
I know.
the
I was just trying.
episode.
I was trying to make
She
it
doesn't have the
connect.
effect.
Okay.
No, not allowed. No, I'm kidding.
Damn
I
it.
mean, Erin's been beaming all episode. Look at that smile.
I know she's got a friend, a vaccinated friends
She's not
getting to hang
alone
out
in
together. It's a
California.
beautiful
That's
thing.
right.
This episode is just classic TNG. I don't know where it ranks among the great TNG episodes. It's up there for sure.
It's had so much heart, and it had Shakespeare in it. So
There's Shakespeare in every damn episode.
Oh
Every
yeah.
single Romulan.
That's how you know
related
it's good.
episode, There was a Shakespeare reference.
Me and Fefanoff were
the
joking
DS9
about it.
one, I was
It's like,
just like-
oh, it's been 5 episodes in a row without a Shakespeare reference. There it is.
Picard is most probably the only supposed French, who quotes Shakespeare so much.
We agree on that. He's the least French person I've ever heard of. Like every time he's like, I'm like, yeah, your name is Jean-Luc, but that's like where we draw the line.
That's as
with your
French as it
Frenchness.
gets.
Draw the
Yeah.
line here.
And he calls
and
his
no
mother
further.
Maman, but that's all.
Even then.
Also, SMK, I believe with you. I don't believe with you. I mean, I'm sorry. I agree with you that sure the Klingon guy has to make the call. Yeah, you had to have Worf make the call to the Klingons. Like you couldn't get like someone else. No.
What Jordy was gonna call him up?
Yeah, why not?
Hey.
Hey.
In fact, why
guys,
not have the
enjoy the Forge
Romulans
here.
make the call? Anyway,
We do a whole
someone-
podcast of stuff like that. Hey guys, this is Jordy LaForge. I'm just calling, seeing how you're doing. Hey, can you guys bring like 3 ships over here? We think some stuff's gonna we helped you out last time. If you guys could just come over here, okay? Let me know you got this message. Thanks. Bye.
that's actually the gist of it too, right?
Yeah.
Whenever Picard needs help from the Klingons, he's like, "Remember that one time I helped you in the Civil War and got you the chancellorship, yeah, you owe me like 10.
I just misread Rob's message on Twitch. I thought he was saying I was pretending to be French, but then I realized he said he's a Brit pretending to be French so he can keep his EU passport. I was gonna say, I know French, don't mess with me. It's like, how dare you, sir? I speak more French than Picard.
Probably.
Yeah, it's easy.
C'est facile. Good lord.
So,
They died in a fire.
No, don't bring up the fire again. Such a great episode. One last line I do want to mention was the interaction between Data and Jirok, and that when he mentioned about I know a handful of Romulan cyberneticists who would love to be this close to you right now.
Wow.
They'd really be eyeing him up, if you know what I mean.
So you guys
He's
should
the
definitely
fortunate one.
you guys should definitely go back and rewatch this after this.
And now, like, once you guys started talking about it, I remember it, and I remember that conversation too. I remember being like, "Wow!" But yeah, I think so. Listen, we'll just keep watching Star Trek.
Indeed.
Oh no, more Star Trek? How will we ever stop watching?
So I think we'll move on to the next one. Everybody's all caught up on this one. Face of the
Yes.
enemy. All right. So
The one
summary.
where she wears the face of the enemy. I like when the title actually helps. I'm like, yeah, I do. I know this.
She saw that one. So did we.
I'm trying really hard, guys.
Oh, so good.
I want to know what the hell is going on.
Deanna make me repeat myself.
Hawk, tell us about
Talk
Face of
about-
the Enemy before I kill the Zoom chat.
Deanna awakens to find herself aboard a Romulan ship surgically altered to appear Romulan, alone amongst the enemy. Strong ties to the Unification storyline as Deanna is kidnapped and altered to play the role of a Tal Shiar operative named Major Recall in order to escort several Romulan defectors out of Romulan space and into the Federation territory. Why do all the bad things happen to Deanna?
But did she recall she was ever in Starfleet?
Thank you.
They could have called her Total Recall.
She said the same thing when we were watching it. It's like all of her episodes for Deanna, it's like just terrible shit happening to her.
Oh yeah,
She just
it's-
suffers. Stop it.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, like an
It's
alien
because she's
puts
an
a-
empath.
Yeah, an alien puts a music box melody into the mind that won't disappear. I get kidnapped, surgically altered, and then that one we
it's
never
like,
really
won't
like to talk about.
assault.
Though
Yeah.
I will say the way she handles herself in this episode, she has a bad first
Boss.
ending, and then in like
queen.
yeah. The second and third ending, it's like she gets her stride, hits like a double and then a home run, and I'm making
And she
this a
runs
base.
home.
This is like the perfect baseball reference, by the way, because she does run home at the end. Yeah.
Nice.
I love when she goes full Tal Shiar because she doesn't just go full Tal Shiar on the sub commander of the Warbird. She eventually, like in private with the dude that got her into this whole mess, goes full Tal Shiar on him. Like,
Yep.
I will throw you out a fucking. She goes full Rosalind on him. It's like, I will
Yeah,
throw
I
you
will
out a fucking airlock,
Find the nearest area.
and I love that.
It was nice to see her really sort of see the command side of her, because she is like a high-ranking officer, and I feel like in a lot of episodes like this in other series where people are supposed to be like undercover, they always like do sort of a bad job, or there's like a pretty specific tell that they're shit. But she even during the dinner, she's like, do you have a fucking point? Like it
Yeah.
just escalates and gets better and better. And the only time when she's like nervous is right in the beginning, but that's kind of okay because they're all meeting, and it's just the progression is so nice. I think you said that, Julian, but I'm just reiterating because I really thought it was great.
Hey, you
Oh,
don't want
yeah.
to get in her empath this episode. She goes from therapist to therapist, if you know what I mean.
Very nice.
Excellent.
I'm giving her props. She's good. I like having an episode where she can do something else. It's like when 7 of 9 is allowed to like actually act as something else other than just like I'm at the
Robot.
computer.
I love the whole dinner scene was fantastic, and her and that just she knew exactly when to speak, when exactly not to speak, and that whole story, like the sub commander tells her, and that about how her family's encounter with the Tal Shiar, and that line, if you don't want another encounter with them, I suggest you listen to me.
Show and Tal Shiar.
Oh, you're killing me. You're killing me tonight.
She really put the her in command her, if you know what I mean.
It's magic.
You're like, Brittany, Gestapo already. I can't. She's undercover.
This was
Just like my
definitely
puns,
one of.
lying in wait.
She's not stopping.
Nope.
She's like,
I won't until you stop me.
I really like this one because it was a different character set. Like we got to see Deanna doing something she didn't normally do. A lot of the episode was on the Romulan ship. We didn't go back to the Enterprise so much. She didn't need that. She did not need anybody to save her, which was really interesting. And then I even like the end bit when she's like post surgery. We were talking about this, and it's just like there's no makeup, no like crazy hair, and it's just her. And we both were like, wow, like you don't need all that bullshit. Like,
Yeah.
Deanna Troy, you're a boss. You look great.
You're like, breathtaking.
Yes, absolutely.
You don't have to Troy so hard.
Yeah. I like the fact that she had to deal with and keep her emotions in check, especially as an empath. So the fact that like the Centurion that recruited her in this has to make a quick judgment call and destroy that freighter with people on it, and she has to deal with the fact that like all these people just died. And that was kind of like almost under her watch because she fucked up a little bit. And because
she saved the mission. She saves the mission.
Yeah, she saves the mission, but she also isn't like in authority as much as she like. I'm not saying as much as she could have been, but in that moment enough to like stop the sub commander from like questioning. So he has to like quickly just hit the button. And I like that there's that. You know how you get like the repercussions of the next episode after Best of Both Worlds of like Picard being assimilated. You don't get so much of that with her like having to deal with loss, but it does get brought up at least, and I appreciate that. You're just like, oh, 18 people died. Okay, like she brings it up and it's a conversation.
Yeah.
But I also really like that this is a direct continuation and natural kind of development of the events of Unification, that more people are defecting, and whether they're going to Earth or going to Vulcan to talk about the Unification cause. And we're going to talk about that a little more when we get to Discovery. But I anything about Unification I'll always talk about for hours.
I'm trying to think of something else to say. Yeah, I totally, I know what you mean. But she handled herself in that situation. Like, what would have changed if she had like, had said like, hey, don't shoot, nothing. So
True.
I mean, yeah, she just handled it.
Sometimes you gotta shoot your shot.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the fact that final scene, she was willing to die for this mission to go through. She really didn't care at that point.
Yeah,
I was.
Julian's disappointed in me.
Me? Yeah, I am. I'm always disappointed in you.
Disappointed.
Oh, I have that. Are we talking about the Tal Shiar?
Yeah, this was our first introduction to the Tal Shiar as the Romulans' ultra secret police that even a decorated commander had reason to fear. And then and it bears a lot of resemblance to Earth's secret police throughout history. We mentioned the Gestapo, the KGB. They also remind me of the Stasi in East Berlin. There was this movie a few years back, the Lives of Others, came out of East Germany. It's about a Stasi operative. It's fantastic. Anybody interested in the subject, just check it out.
I love the Tal Shiar. Like I said, I want to be one. No, I don't, because that means I'm really probably doing some awful shit, right?
Oh, you're tearing people out of their homes in the middle of the night.
Yeah. I guess I shouldn't say I want to be one, but I find them
The government's like,
really fascinating. And I like the fact that, and again, we're going to maybe briefly touch on it when we talk about Picard, that his home is open to 2 ex Tal Shiar operatives, and that says something. There is a certain amount of like indoctrination and brainwashing within the Romulan Empire, and that certainly goes towards how the Tal Shiar are trained. Trust no one, question everything. The Federation are evil, blah blah blah. It's like Russians probably getting taught that, like, and
oh no, am
maybe
I Tal Shiar right now?
in Iran that, like, America is evil and the devil, and I mean they're not far off these days, but
we may be the devil, but Lil Nas X is dancing along with us.
But have you
That-
like I think oh wow, sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. I say like these, like these kinds of secret police are almost like this necessary measure that any sort of expansionist empire has, not and I'm needs. It doesn't excuse what they do and what they are in that, but the Romulan Empire wouldn't be the Romulan Empire without an organization like this to keep everybody in lockstep among going towards the same goal.
Mhm.
And in the end, you see it's just really part of the culture. Like you see that. I think you all read like that insane document by what is his name, Michael Sharwan, about like
Yes.
the Romulan
Yeah.
culture, and even in the Dark Veil, like these constant like things are like
Well, right, because in the Dark Veil, they're
Secrecy.
not only dealing with just straight up regular old OG Romulans, they're dealing with Tal Shiar on the ship, and then they're also dealing with the Zhat Vash on the ship. It's like layers upon layers upon layers upon layers. It's not hard to believe that the Romulans have something even crazier after the Zhat Vash, right? Like, what's next?
Probably more we don't know about.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Hawk said in the very beginning, they're like onions. They got layers.
Yeah.
Every show, a new layer will be revealed.
Yeah, there was that line from the Dark Veil, and that when the subject, the Zhat Vash agent, and that was going through the Jazari's memory bank,
Mhm.
and finds that they were on Romulus,
Yeah, he was
going
not
to
happy
art
about that.
centers, going to theaters, and that, and the doctor suggested it may have been just a cultural spy, in that somebody who wanted to study
Mhm.
their culture, life, and that, and it's like her line: "A spy is a spy."
Yep.
I think that's so Romulan.
I spy with my little eye.
Yeah, this was a
Another
9 out of
episode.
10 for me.
Yeah, it's a great episode.
Totally.
What's next?
Am I taking DS9 or are you taking DS9, Hawk?
You go ahead. I've done 3 in a row. Why don't
I'll
you take
take it.
DS9?
I'll take DS9, and this is an absolute just classic episode late in the series in season 7. Inter Arma Enim Sealant. Is it Sealant? It's not
Sealant.
silent
Silent.
because it's Latin.
Mhm.
Sealant
Inter Arma
Legis.
Silent Legis.
Thank you. That's why we have you
got it.
here. I'll read the synopsis. Attending a medical conference on Romulus, of all places, Dr. Bashir becomes embroiled in an elaborate scheme devised by our best friends over at Section 31 as a way to ensure the Romulans remain on the side of the Federation alliance. So much in this episode, right? It's dark, it's deep. It not only connects to what we end up seeing a lot of in Disco Season 2 with Section 31, but shows and just furthers what we've been talking about all night with the mistrust between the Romulan Empire and the Federation.
You know what they say: in times of war, the laws fall silent.
Yeah.
That's the meaning of the episode.
Yeah.
Hashtag Cicero gang. Nobody
I mean,
cares.
it's
Nobody
a
cares
side
that I like
I
language.
do care. Come on.
It's
I
okay.
literally I do.
Your
whole job.
Literally, it's your job to care. No, I love. You guys know how I feel about DS9, but this is one of those good This is a solid episode, regardless of if you like Star Trek or not. Like, you could show somebody who doesn't know anything about Trek this episode, and they'll be like, "Wait, there's a secret dark organization? I didn't know that happens in Star Trek." And like, "Whoa, he's gonna uncover the fact that this like admiral is actually a part of this." Like, it's just so
Admiral.
good, and it's a good.
But he's not a badmiral. We'll talk about that in
Oh
a
yeah,
minute.
you said admiral. Okay, I thought you just said admiral, and I was like, "What did I say?" I thought I said admiral. But like, this is a good Bashir episode. So I know, like, the other day, just for fun, we watched like Our Man Bashir, and that's a goofy one. This is the exact opposite. This is like good, like deep Bashir episode, and that one's like good goofy Bashir episode. So like, oh, I
And
love this one.
Intrepid class.
Yep.
Voyager was all they were up in Voyager sets like crazy.
Oh,
in
the
this
whole
episode.
it was the
really
Bellerophon, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we were watching and we were like, I was like, oh, I think they shot that in Voyager's mess hall. Because I didn't see the first part where they were on the
Mess
ship.
hall,
And then-
conference room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was like I was like, oh, they used one of their sets, and I was like, oh, I was like, I think this is on like a different
Older set.
version of Voyager.
Yeah.
And then they showed the ship, and I was like, yep, that's Voyager.
It was cool. I liked
So
it.
cool.
Yeah, I liked it too. It was a different vibe for DS9.
Hmm.
Yeah, like DS9's already like the deeper, or I mean the darker show. But even for that, it's just like, oh no, this is like wartime espionage. Like Bashir is playing the sides and like really learning what's going on.
Yeah.
So cool.
I really like Rob's comment here, and that'll lead me to kind of my next side about this. Admiral Ross is solid. He's an admiral during wartime. Of course, he had to get his hands dirty, and it's hard to disagree with this, right? That being said, I remember the first time I watched this, however many years ago, being just floored because I love the character of Admiral Ross, and the actor I believe died, so rest in peace.
Oh.
Just when Julian calls out Admiral Ross and just says, "Where's Sloan?" And then Ross knows, right? And he's like, "This is off the record," and takes the comm badge off. And again, one of the greatest, like one-on-one scenes in Star Trek history between Ross and Julian just calling him out on his bullshit, but Ross not backing down, right? Being like, "This is war. Men and women are dying every single fucking day. I don't associate with Section 31, but did I work with them on this with the people that want to go to war with us at a moment's notice? Yeah, I worked with them this one time, and I would do it again, basically." How was your guys' reaction when I don't know how, like, what your guys? I know, Aaron, you're still making your way through DS9, but when you first watched this episode, because Admiral Ross becomes, even though he's not listed in the main cast, like, he becomes a major character on the show and someone you kind of like get to know and like a lot.
I mean, I liked it. I think this was a good episode for Julian because a lot of times, especially in the early seasons, like, listen, he got better at acting. And also they wrote him better too. Like, this is a much more interesting story, and it actually makes sense that he's there. It's like a medical conference, because half the time when we see Julian, it's like, "Why are you here? You're a medical
He doesn't
person."
even know why he's there, honestly.
Yeah.
Bashir
So-
luck.
Yeah, and I like the parts that are about, he is a good person and he believes in the ideals. And I do think he's right. Like, I understand the practicality of, like, oh, people have to get their hands dirty, but I also think, like, that's the kind of thing that also, like, destroys relationships and destroys trust. And so, like, I think it's a good story because it makes people feel different things, and it makes a lot of people question things. So I think it's really well put together.
Felt so
Yeah.
bad for the Romulan senator. Who
Oh
basically,
yeah, she gets the worst end of this entire thing. Yeah, it's brutal. That's the one place where she, I think Ross also feels the most regret, right? Because chances are
Didn't seem that regretful.
that wasn't the Senate. That was the Tal Shiar. They're probably gonna kill her, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's just what they do.
And it's what happens if you think about it. Like, the commander in the Enterprise incident, most probably, like, she's done. She's done though.
Yeah.
Like, she can never go back. The commander in the face of the enemy too, like, she's done. And like, Senator Kritak, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, Kredek.
Yeah, they just like sacrifice, like, these people just like to take a cloaking device, to extract some Romulans, or here to get some, somebody.
To make sure that the peace is
Yeah.
kept, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Someone's gonna have to Sloan them a new senator.
Oh my goodness.
Their Ross is our gain. No, for real though, this is a really good episode, and it's so cool. Like, the fact that Bashir of all people gets to see more of this, because it's not one of those plots that you would have expected before this episode, like Bashir would be a part of. So
Right.
the fact that they found a reason why this would happen, and why he agrees to it because he's at the conference. There's a lot of that, like, mistrust again with Romulans,
Mhm.
but they start to walk the line here of being like, can you fully mistrust them? We do some shady shit too. Like, all this is all over the place. War is just a mess. It's a hot
Or
mess.
as hell.
And the
Or
laws
itself.
fell silent during wartime, but you need the voice of reason. You need the conscience to be here,
Mm.
even if
Yes,
you need
morality
somebody
can't
to-
fall silent.
say it.
Yeah.
And it's Bashir.
Sloan and Bashir's conversation at the end, and that how Sloan admires him, and that his forthrightness and his his principles, and that
Section
that we-
31 is here to protect people like you.
Yeah, he
What a
said,
line.
men of conscience, men of principle, men who can sleep at night.
beautiful.
I
so
hate
good.
that dude though. He's such a jerk.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
He is a
Section
jerk.
31. Yeah.
I
Great.
just mean the world would be a better place if you had those people that
Yeah.
stuck to that morality.
And at the end of that episode, Sloan kind of defeats Julian, right? Because he calls Odo and is like, "Never mind. You know what? My mistake." Doesn't tattle. He's like, "Okay, maybe I understand what they're doing a little bit, I don't like it. I don't agree with it. It's wrong, but it's a necessary evil.
Oh, I
So-
didn't see that. I just saw him. That's a different take because for me, like every time he's tried to like, call the guy's always gone. He's like
Right.
disappeared. So to me, he was just like, this guy's already fucking gone. Like I'll fucking.
You know how I
write a
took that
report.
though, Aaron, at the end is that he got back to DS9, told everyone, guess what? Sloane's alive. He's probably going to come visit me tonight. Everybody be on alert. So the minute he leaves the room, that's why he calls Odo and decides not to have him captured. That's my
I
take.
don't. He wouldn't get captured though, because he never gets captured, no matter what. Like he just turns around
Like
and they
Batman.
fucking like yeah, like ninja
Smoke
vanish.
bomb.
Like, this is it. We can set the
Yeah.
trap. And he turns around. He's like, fuck, he
Yeah.
already left.
I think he was just like, I'm going to bed. Fuck this
Yeah, right.
shit. If
I got-
if I put
I
in
got
this report, I
tortured.
have to
People
get up.
died.
Yeah,
I'm
because if he
done.
tells Odo that right now, he's gonna have to get up, write a report. There's like a whole.
And
I'm going
Odo
to
don't
bed.
like writing reports.
Odo
Nobody
comes out of
likes
his
writing
bucket that he
reports.
sleeps in. He's just like,
Yeah.
oh, God.
Can we respect the fact that Odo is just like on call for
Yeah.
any security
Odo's
thing? And you were like,
24/7.
yes, it's Odo. Like,
Damn, you get the chief of security.
There it is, my Odo girl.
Yep.
Mm.
Talk about
would-
aubergine.
I would like to add, I think Julian might have been coming around to Sloane's way of thinking a little earlier in the episode than that, when they were discussing about the, Sloane wanting to assassinate the commander of the Tal Shiar.
Yep. Well, and
Uh,
remember
yeah.
in what we left behind, in if they were going to do a season 8, Bashir would have been the head of Section 31. So
Oh, yeah. That was the thing they were talking about.
That
It
would
was
have been
when-
not great.
It was when they were discussing the syndrome and that he was suffering from Tuvon
Yeah.
syndrome, I think
Yep.
they called it. And he
Gearbox
says,
syndrome? That's when you become very Vulcan.
right. Bashir was actually pretty quick to come up with an answer when they asked if there's any way to accelerate it.
mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He didn't really have to offer. Yeah, he didn't really have to offer that information on that, but he did.
Yep. He was just like,
Um,
you want to know how to trigger this?
Yeah.
I'll pull that
Yeah.
trigger.
Let's briefly move on to Voyager. We don't need to spend a lot of time on this episode. It's not exactly a Romulan episode, right? But a small wormhole is discovered. This is very early on in Voyager, 7th episode. A small wormhole is discovered by Harry Kim, allows communication with a Romulan scientist back in the Alpha Quadrant, raises the crew's hopes of maybe getting back home. Obviously, they find out very quickly it's like a very tiny wormhole. They can't get back, but they do make this contact. But again, this episode stays consistent, right, with that recurring theme, that initial mistrust between the Romulans towards the Federation, even when he's transported aboard and he has to almost correct himself when he's like, when they say like, oh, he's 20 years from the past, and is like, don't mess up the timeline. I wouldn't do anything to hurt the Romulan Empire, but please contact me if you ever make it back.
I
There's
think
some-
it's a really a beautiful story. Like as a standalone, and especially early on in Voyager, it's like a really well written episode because the first season was a little rough, and it's like there's heartfeltness in it, like there's the connection, and I like that when you look at like a Romulan scientist, because we see all these military people, but I think about how for a very long time we've worked with the Russians on the ISS, and I know that that might be coming to an end, but I think that's been a really important part of like having that cooperation. And I think scientists aren't the same as military people, even if they're military scientists. And I just like this guy's vibe, and it showed a different side to Romulans. And it was just a good story. So it doesn't have as much like big impact, but I thought it was a good story.
I like this episode because it's like that little inkling of hope, and it's so early on in the series that it's like one of the first cases where they have that hope, where they're like, if this works out right, maybe our messages can get to Starfleet, or at least somebody that we know of knows about us. Like it's one of those, like, whether it misses or connects in canon or whatever, whether it's Year of Hell and doesn't count or not, this is like that first chance. That tiny little worm, tiny little
And-
wormhole.
that moment where they're like, oh, we connected. There's somebody on the
Yeah.
on the line. There's somebody on the line, and then it comes on, and it's a Romulan, and you're like,
Yeah, you're like,
oh,
Oh, no.
boy, like
Well-
the worst pick. Like,
But this is
oh,
where it
that's not
starts to get-
happening, guys.
it gets less like, cut out where, in other shows you immediately are like, okay, Romulans definitely bad guys. And in this one it started to show like there are some Romulans you can trust. Not every, like, That's the whole point of why Star Trek has all these different races. It's to reflect what we do as humanity, but they're also just like, but this is the future. Your prejudice is wrong.
But
And this is why.
B'Elanna even says it right. It's like, of all people
Yeah.
that we make first contact back with the Alpha
Yep.
Quadrant with, it had to be a Romulan. Like,
But think
come on,
about it. it's
and
that
leave it to the
parallel
one
with the
Klingon on
Vulcans.
board to say it too, right?
Yeah.
We did first contact with Vulcans. They did
B'Elanna.
first contact with Romulans out there. So,
Yep.
duality of man.
I just watched this again for, I don't know how many times I've watched Voyager through, but it was probably like the 5th or 6th time I've seen this episode. How did you guys feel when Voyager first made contact, and that kind of realization that those messages may never reach Starfleet, especially at the end when like you realize that he dies? It's just like,
Oh my
I got
god.
bumped again.
Stop.
That's
Yeah.
why it's a good
Stop.
story, man. It just the feels.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
start the episode by like kind of hating the guy, like
Yeah.
automatically, because you're like, oh, he's never gonna cooperate, he's never gonna help you, and then they're like they make you hope and they make you feel, and then he's dead. I was like, roller coaster.
Yeah.
They
I
just
feel like-
crush Voyager as often as possible.
Yeah. And it's also because it happens so early in the show's run that you're like, there's no way this is going to work out where it'll help them reach home. But part of you still hopes, like, but maybe some messages still reach Starfleet and it just
Mhm.
takes them a long time to get home. But then you're like, oh God, he died.
So sad.
Tuvok just bringing all the bad news in that episode.
Right.
Not really a whole lot to touch on this. We're going to move right along. I'm going to hand it back to Hawk for, I almost said Eric. You're not Eric.
I'm not Eric.
Hand it back to Hawk for Picard.
We move on to Picard in the episode Broken Pieces. Picard introduced us to the Romulans' most secret organization, the Zhat Vash, a cult-like sect whose indoctrination process we see in this episode. On the Grief planet Aya, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, initiates are shown a vision of artificial life that existed hundreds of centuries ago that nearly brought about the end of all biological life in the universe. The Zhat Vash mission is the eradication of all forms of artificial intelligence and to prevent others from ever attempting to bring it to bear. The Zhat Vash were responsible for the AI's attacks on the Mars colony, a very typical Romulan ploy, carrying out their objective while cloaking it under a different pretext and using another to initiate attack. What does everybody think of the Zhat Vash?
Do you have feelings?
Yeah, I love the shit.
I love the genre. I love all the fun.
I just love it. They're like, it's badass. I mean, like you see them like survive the thing, and like some like go insane, and then like what is her name? Like Narissa.
Narissa,
like,
yeah.
Narissa the
And
better
I'm like,
version.
ah, queen.
Just a single tear going down
Yeah,
her
single-
cheek.
I was like, oh. They're
Um,
bad guys, I know, but somehow they're not. But somehow they are. But they're not.
But-
They are.
It's weird because they seem to have, we can call them bad guys, but at the same time, like if you'd seen this vision, they bear this responsibility, right? They've seen
Dr. Girardi literally kills the person she loves because she saw what they saw and felt
Yeah,
like
I
she
hated
had
that,
no
by the
choice.
way.
I don't disagree with you. There's a lot I didn't like about Picard,
Yeah.
but it's funny because Lexi's gonna listen to this later. She's not on watching us live tonight, but she was like, I hope you guys talk about Narek a lot. But NYR Light said on Twitch, part of the reason this episode was so good is because we didn't have to see Narek.
Oh no.
Alright, come on.
And I have to agree, he just wasn't a great character. And Narissa,
Please.
Marissa was
Please?
the better of the two. I think
She
she,
was.
just was more commanding and like you were more interested in her presence. Like she had a gravitas to her.
she did. Yep.
And
Peyton List.
Narek was just kind of like, oh, Narek.
We need to stop criticizing the new track, giving us like hot characters like Narek and Ethan Peck. Like, this is good. We
I don't have
don't
a
care
problem
if he
with
has
Ethan
nothing to say. He's just here so we can look.
He's
I
a
also
snack.
didn't have a
It's
problem
fine.
with the
He's a
actor.
snack.
I have a problem when he's doing a freaking electric slide on a board cube.
I don't
Slide, slide,
even
electric
remember.
slide.
I don't even remember what he's doing in World Picard. I'm just looking.
She's like, I just remember his face.
The pretty.
Yes,
The
it's
I remember
pretty,
the
it's pretty.
bedroom.
Exactly.
But for real though,
Over.
again, loving the Tal Shiar and just the inner workings of Romulan culture. Learning that there was a sect inside the already secretive sect just was
Insecticide.
exactly
That's a terrible thing to use in war.
was just a really cool thing. And I love how just Larice is even shocked at some of their tactics. When she has that line early on, she's like, "Ah, cheeky fuckers," and I think it's really cool. I know a lot of people didn't like the Zhat Vash and think that it's like, oh, they're just the Tal Shiar, and I'm like, of the few things that I did enjoy about Picard, I really liked the Zhat Vash, and that was because I didn't like Commodore O, but Narissa sold me.
No,
Narissa
I
sold
love
me on
her.
the Zhat Vash.
It's a bright spot in an otherwise convoluted and uninteresting story.
That was a very polite way of saying that. So, I do like having the Zhat Vash because like you already only see so much of the Romulans, and then that like the Federation has like Section 31, whatever, and then it's like what is the answer to that? That's even more secretive amongst the Romulans, and then you have the Zhat Vash, and you're like, oh shit, these guys are like intense, and it does add something more interesting to the story. Like it's kind of more like a not really like James Bondy, but like it's that sort of intrigue that it adds to it, where you're like, what is this group? What are they doing? And the fact that they're like the ones that were basically responsible for like the whole Mars scenario,
And hit it
it's like,
so well, right? That
yeah.
Mhm.
they blamed it on synthetic
And you're
life
like,
forms, and
shit.
yeah,
So as much as I love AI, and am I mad that they did that and framed them? Of course. But it was so fucking cool that I was also like, that was really cool.
yeah.
Right.
That hit differently after Children of Mars, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
All the
Um,
baggage that
Yep.
came with it.
Now
Oh
I
yeah.
cry. Now I cry every
SMK
time.
on Twitch says the best part of the Zhat Vash is that everyone can believe the Romulans are nesting doll of secrets and lies in secret societies. Yeah, because it's just
Totally.
that the Russian doll analogy is perfect for Romulans, right? That is
And occasionally you get a
exactly
nugget of
Their
truth in there.
secrets have secrets.
yes.
And then within the truth, another nugget of a lie.
Yeah.
But I did want to mention how that they've incorporated that kind of mistrust of AI into just Romulan like technology and everything itself in that, because like we learned that Romulans computer networks and on their ships aren't even networked in that. They're just they have bare
Kind of
minimum
like on the
admin,
Galactica.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's actually interesting, right? Because in Face of the Enemy, when Troy says computer lights don't turn on, she's got to
Oh,
hit a
that's a good
switch.
point.
Yeah. Yep. No thinky machines, baby.
It's a good episode. I enjoyed
If you
it.
don't have thinky machines, they can never thinky against you.
It's true.
Big brain time. But it's
New-
funny because do their computers have ROM, Yulan?
Oh my God. What's next,
With
guys?
that,
What's next?
I'm going to
Next
move on
episode.
to last but certainly not least, one of my favorite all-time episodes of Star Trek ever, not just Star Trek Discovery, and that is Unification Part 3. And we obviously can't talk about Unification Part 3 without talking about Unifications Part 1 and 2. But the quick synopsis of this episode: while grappling with the fallout of her recent actions and what her future might hold, Burnham agrees to represent the Federation in an intense debate about the release of politically sensitive but highly valuable burn data. What we find out and what they find out is that this, information is on Vulcan, or the artist formerly known as Vulcan, Navarre. And
That was good.
thank you. I sometimes I can pull it off. There's the biggest thing I want to say about this episode is there's fan service, and then there's just linking episodes seamlessly right into their previous series, and this story is just so important to all of the TNG episodes that we talked about before, especially Unifications Part 1 and 2, which we talked about in a previous episode, and then Face of the Enemy as well. How did you guys feel watching this one? Because for me, again, I'll say it is just one of my favorite episodes of Trek ever.
It was one of my favorite episodes from. Wait, it was yeah, it was the burn,
Yeah.
season 3. Yeah, it was one of my favorite episodes from season 3, and I think it's one of those good standalone episodes also, where like, if you like Unification 1 and 2, like this does continue that in like such an awesome way, and seeing that Spock tie-in too, and just Michael Burnham and her mom. Whew, this whole episode, I love it. Every time I think about it, I'm just like, yes, it was awesome. Michael really stood her ground and finally like show what's up. Her mom's like, nope, you got to do this. You think
Yep.
I'm your friend? You got to fight for it.
Calls her out on her shit.
Yeah. She was like, oh, let me be your confidant. And then she's like, you're on trial now. And I was like, whoa, Mom. It's great. So good.
Great episode, and yeah, it perfectly ties into Unification 1 and 2. In that, if Unification 1 and 2 are like the seeds of how an empire would fall, and that, then Unification 3 is like, what grows from that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can say anything much more about it.
It's
deep and
just nice
profound.
to see, like, they've gone so far in the future, and I think we're sort of exploring it with them, and they're introducing all this other new stuff, but it's nice for them to close the loop on something, because I feel like a lot of times the longer shows go on, it's like, let me tell you 18 new things, but it's nice to just, like, they're the fruits of Spock's labor, are here, and it was really beautiful.
Yeah, it's nice, right? Because like you just get the quick explanation that this didn't just happen overnight. This took hundreds of years after Spock's initial idea for reunification to finally happen. And even now, on Navarre, there's still issues between the Romulan and Vulcans people, and it's never a perfect union. And I thought this episode captured that so perfectly. And I was so stoked when we got the first trailer for Discovery season 4, where
So-
go ahead.
No, because like we had this conversation, I didn't know the next episode was going to be called Unification 3, and I was just watching the trailer like images by images, and I was like, oh my god, is that like is it going to be Unification? And you told me like, oh yeah, Unification 3, and I was like, yeah, I think it's going to be that.
That's
Like,
right,
he
on
was like,
Discord,
no,
yeah.
this is the real name of the episode. I was like, ah! And
remember
Rob
that.
is saying
Next
like it's
season
a
we'll get
gift
Unification 4.
to long-term fan, and
It is.
yeah,
Yeah, it really is.
Some
and
people say they'll never get together, but I think they will.
not only does the show bridge the next generation to Star Trek Discovery, but it also links Discovery to Picard, because we get the Kuat Malat again, and Michael's mom is a
Kuat
warrior nun, and it's amazing. What did we feel in that moment? I know you guys briefly already talked about it, the fact that her mom takes her on as that quote unquote hopeless case, to basically be her counsel and call her out in front of not only her crewmates, but as Spock's sister, but in front of the Romulans and the Vulcans as well.
It's nice to see them together, but I'm glad we're not like, doing some. She didn't join the cast or anything. I think that would have been a lot. There's a little flyer
There's
out here,
something
guys. My
attacking us.
God.
like that's why we're like,
I like that the mom.
It's a cloaked Romulan warbird.
Oh God.
Oh, it's okay. All I did was make a bad pun. I'm glad you didn't hear it.
Good. And-
I was just hoping for Michael to see a giant statue of her little
Mhm.
brother. Like any woman who has little brothers that are like, like kind of your face, you don't want to see that in the future.
That's funny.
And I was kind of expecting like something, some like
Spock holding his arm up to the.
But I want like
Yeah,
statue
should
to
be
be
like, when
with
am I
the
getting
bear,
my
the bear,
statue?
and we should be like,
Yeah.
but
I saved
yeah.
the universe.
I love this episode, but it did leave me with a lot more questions about the Romulans and that, like, who are they as a people now?
Yeah.
And that without like, the Star Empire and that, and like, expansionism and that.
Have they calmed the fuck down?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And that actually leads us to our last point on this episode. The status quo obviously changes the Vulcan. We already mentioned this. The planet's not called Vulcan anymore. It's Navarre. Unification was successful. I quickly mentioned that we see President Torina of Navarre in the previews for season 4 of Discovery. Are we excited to head back to Navarre and see more of this
Totally.
cult? I'm dying for it.
Yes, that's what
Mhm.
I want.
Go.
I wanna
We're
see.
Our bodies are ready.
I can never get enough.
Yeah, agreed.
They're gonna to calm and get the fuck down. Maybe.
By the way,
Probably not.
I'm super
Tensions will be
proud.
high.
I'm super proud of myself because I vaguely remember being able to nail like Tikal in Kate was
So
like
you did.
super
You did.
drunk.
You
on
did.
Drunk Space
You
Nine.
did. To call and Cat.
It's like,
That's
this
right.
is to call and cat.
I
Um,
don't remember most of Drunk Space Nine.
anything else to move on to before we get to the mailbag on Unification 3? No.
It's good.
Then
Watch it.
I'm going to open up hailing frequencies for our mailbag.
Hailing frequencies are open.
And Giraffe, because you're our guest and you and Rob are your WTC buddies, if you don't
Round
listen to
trip
Drunk
chase.
Space 9, you might not get the WTC joke, but there it is. You could read Rob's mailbag.
Rob, I'm lending you my voice.
This friendship, I love it.
So Rob says, I like the Romulans! Exclamation points. Sure, they don't change much till way later on. Their MO from ENT to TOS to TNG to DS9 is pretty much always the same moves within moves, subterfuge. But it's always fun to watch. I'm super curious how the society has evolved post-supernova. Is it even more of a poly-state now? Have they fractured into factions? Do some want freedom, peace? I hope Picard season 2 tells us a little more. They haven't had a good uniform since TOS. Though
Agree.
that's why we're friends. That is why.
Oh, I love
Yeah,
it.
I agree. I agree totally. And yeah.
And I just want to like give you a shout out for reading MOENTTOSTNG DS9 without like a single stutter. Like the
Yeah.
flow there was immaculate, and I was like, people won't even know she speaks French fluently. Like in
True
85
sign of
other
a Star
languages.
Trek fan
He
there,
was
right?
just like,
Who wants to take the final bit of mailbag from NY Rowley?
I'll do it.
Oh, Brittany.
Hawk, you can do it.
Hawk, take it.
All right.
What?
NY Raleighite wrote, the Romulans have always been a far more interesting race than the Klingons for me, even despite the ridiculous shoulder pads. The Klingons blustered, but the Romulans were the scary ones. They were always working behind the scenes to achieve their aims, like supporting the Duras sisters. But you worried that if they thought they had a clear advantage, they'd strike. Imagine what the Romulans would do if they had the Genesis device. I wasn't as thrilled with their portrayal in Picard, though. The idea that the Javash would basically doom their entire race to stop the synths seemed over the top. Too over the top.
The Romulans could be good at over the top sometimes. You know, Rome, theatrics. That's what
They
they do.
enjoy it.
Maybe they
Yeah.
thought if they pulled it off correctly, they'd have a Jot Bash.
At the end, when they accomplish a mission, they're like, party!
Yep.
Well, there's no better time to end an episode than on having a Jot Bash. So that is going to do it for our big Romulan deep dive. We are going to be back next week with our Patron's Choice episode for April, and we have the results of our poll. So next week's Patron's Choice episode is going to be, drumroll, time travel plots.
Yeah!
I love time travel.
So
That's
time
my
travel
favorite.
plots, and has Trek handled them well. So all things time travel, from Wales to
Hello, computer.
Does
Yeah.
Year of Hell help?
Year of Hell is definitely, we'll revisit that. We'll probably revisit the Whales, First Contact, all of it. Time travel galore. It's gonna well, Brittany, you may need to binge the rest of Voyager by next week. Just
I'm
saying.
almost
Yeah.
done, so I'll be done.
Just let us know, because we got to watch
I'll be
Endgame
done.
together.
Do you think a little Gary 7 is going to enter into the conversation next week?
He could for sure. Yeah, we'll see what happens. So I forget actually who posted the idea for time travel. I will announce that in the Discord some other time, but congratulations for time travel plots. We'll be doing that next week. I'm going to sign us off. It has been a pleasure. Giraffe, thank you for surprising that was
Beaming
that
in.
was
That was
awesome.
amazing.
Pride gang.
Amazing. I love it. Join us all next week, and then if you are on Discord and up for a late night watch along, there's usually something going on there. I will say to you, live long and prosper. Majram. Have a good night.
Thanks for beaming into our podcast today. If you want to keep the hailing frequencies open, you can subscribe on Apple and Google Podcasts, YouTube, and Spotify. Like what you hear? Put in a good word with Starfleet and leave us a 5-star review.